Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you listen to episode 219 of the Treaty Talk podcast. Myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. Another huge weekend to look back on with the Hurlers and footballs both in action. It was a seasonal debut for John Kiley's side. Unfortunately, defeat for both, but plenty of positives and learning to come from this weekend. We have the Hurlers back at home in the two Gaelic grounds for the first time, I think, since the Munster Championship last year. We've ladies football, we've huge games for Bruff and Castletown Ballyagran in the Junior B series, and we also have colleges and schools to look back on, to look forward to. So stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Good morning, Hugh, Matt. We had a bit of technical difficulties this morning, but how are you keeping on this Wednesday morning?
I'm very good, Jack. How are you? And I don't know what the Gremlins were. I have a suspicion they were around en route today, you know.
I don't even know if it was internet that was causing it, but look, we're here now. We got it sorted. You're resorting to your iPad and you've a screen in front of you as well for your computer, so there could be even more information on today's podcast. But I suppose we'll get straight into it, Matt, and straight to Páirc Uí Chaoimh last Saturday night. And first and foremost, it was brilliant to have, a lot of the frontline players back, because the Munster Hurling League was a time for experimentation. But when you're going down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, you're going to get a hard time. And to see the likes of Declan Hannon and Garrod Hegarty and Sean Finn and these boys back, and to be fair, it didn't really look like they missed a beat from 7 or 8 months ago in the Ireland final, did they?
They didn't, but Jack, it was uncanny, the way it was, the way things panned out for a second time. That lightning struck twice. Limerick were beaten in the last minute of literally the last puck of the Munster Senior League by Brian Hayes, and it was replicated again on this occasion. And I suppose very few people could quibble, even the most partisan of Cork supporters could quibble, had Limerick come out of the game with a draw. We were trying to second guess John Kiley last week and to what kind of a line out he would send out, and I suppose we probably got it right in that should be a fair mixture of some of the tried and trusted and some of the fringe players. And looking back on it, it was 7 of the team that started in the All Ireland final that played. But I suppose there were 2 things that I should say, that for me, there was, first of all, there was the return of Cian Lynch, which was absolutely wonderful to see, and it's something that we have been waiting almost 12 months for, since that game against Waterford in the Gaelic grounds when he pulled up with that injury. And it was fantastic to see him back. And this is not sour grapes now, Jack, but I thought it was very, very poor form of a section of Yobs that decided to boo Cian Lynch coming onto the field. I think there is no place for that in our game. Now, the second thing about it is, and my heart goes out to him, was the injury to Robbie O'Flynn. Because in my opinion, Robbie O'Flynn was absolutely outstanding on Saturday evening. He really led the charge. And we've spoken in the past about Limerick's physicality, and people tend to shy away from taking him on. By God, Robbie O'Flynn took him on in the physicality stakes, and it's an unfortunate injury, and we wish Robbie Flynn a very, very speedy recovery, because hurling wants to see the like of Robbie O'Flynn on hurling's big day. Fantastic hurler, and so disappointed and so sorry for him. We wish him the best of luck. Getting back to the game, I suppose it was a game, Jack, a classical game of two halves, in that it was Limerick in the first half, no doubt about it, well worthy of their 16 points to 8 lead at half time. But Cork came out in the second half re-energised. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised at that. And they really hit the ground running and opened the Limerick defence, got the couple of goals. And talking about goals, Jack, it's a slight bit worrying that over the course of the game, Limerick rarely threatened Patrick Collins' goal and rarely looked like scoring a goal. Now, I know it has stood Limerick in good stead in the past, keeps striking over points, stroking them over, and like 22 on Saturday evening, it was a damn sight better than the first round against Wexford last year, when I think they got 8. And I think in terms of readiness and preparedness, if you compare last Saturday night to 12 months ago, Limerick are further down the road in terms of preparation. And some of the real big hitters have to come on now. It's unfortunate that Declan Hannon had to leave the field. They picked up an injury, and I'm of the opinion, had Declan Hannon, who was outstanding last Saturday evening, had he stayed on the pitch, we may have had a different result. But we're likely now, on Saturday evening to see some more of the big hitters coming on. Rod Hegarty had a great first half. Like as you said at the outset, Jack, in your opening remarks, it was great to see the frontline players, as we call them, having more of the same. It was like as if they were never away from the All-Ireland final of last year. Sean Finn was Sean Finn, Gerard Hegarty, Declan Hannon, very augurs very, very well for the future. Seamus Flanagan was busy, and I suppose the effort maybe he put in didn't get the return that he normally gets in terms of scores. But look, there are a lot of positives to take out of it, Jack. And at the end of the day, it comes down to how much Limerick want to win the league, or how much Limerick want to use the league in preparation for a bid for 4 in a row.
Yeah, I wanted to get onto that point about they're much improved team from 12 months ago. Now, we saw last year that the league didn't really harm Limerick when it came to championship time, but it is, I suppose, it's easier to keep going from a high base than to put it together in championship. But this team knows how to do just that. I had a few points written down about the game, and you kind of went through all there. I just had Cian Lynch, Declan Hannon, and the difference between 2022. But on that, kind of staying on that difference in 2022, you have Clare coming to the Gaelic grounds. Obviously, Clare are looking to try and build on 2022. They got as close as anyone to Limerick. They were arguably the best team against Limerick. The two draws in Cusack Park, and the Munster final was a draw really, and Limerick won an extra time. That I think it's important for Limerick to get off to a good start against Clare, and try and put them in their place earlier on in the year, because you don't want to be giving a young team like that more confidence than they already will have from what was an excellent 2022.
Yeah, for Clare it was, and after the game against Kilkenny, Jack, in the All Ireland semi-final, we began to raise questions about Clare and whether during the course of the Munster Championship that they had reached their optimum. But and it's still very, very hard to judge them based on last Sunday's performance. Jack, this is no disrespect to Westmeath now, but you just wonder, what did a game like that do for Westmeath, or what did it do for Clare, for that matter? I would suggest, and I would confidently say, very, very little for both. Clare were without Tony Kelly, and they've been boosted this year by the return of Shane Amori, Aidan McCarthy, and David Conroy, which again will strengthen their panel. But I think the first test of Clare, of course, will be now they beat they failed to get through in the Munster League. They lost to Tipperary, and they lost to Waterford actually as well. So, no, I'm not sorry. They beat Waterford and they lost to Tipperary. You know, we'll be able to make a more informed judgment on where Clare are after their test with Limerick on Saturday evening. But I suggest that Clare are very, very definitely going in the right direction. And notwithstanding what for Clare was a fiasco against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final last year and the most disappointing performance, like, you know, Clare are going to be formidable opposition during the course of 2023.
Yeah, they definitely will. I know we don't second guess John, but if you weren't, do you think that we'll see, you know, the likes of Garrod, and obviously Declan is injured now, but Sean Finn, Seamus Flanagan, Darragh Donovan, these kind of lads, Tom Morrissey retained again, or do you think he'll probably bring in, you know, the other 8 from the All-Ireland team and give them their chance?
I would be anticipating that we might see Will O'Donoghue, possibly Kyle Hayes, Peter Casey, the like of those players, maybe coming in Barry Nash. I would be expecting possibly Nicky Quaid. You know, that he certainly will. He's certainly going to rejig it around. And Jack, you're not going to lure me down the road of trying to second guess John Kiley.
Yeah, we won't second guess John, but I suppose too with the
other than to make some broad statements, and that's about the sum total of it.
Yeah, from the players, I suppose, that didn't play the All-Ireland last year, I thought Colin Coughlin again was very, very good. And we had said earlier on the year with Diarmaid Byrnes gone for the start of the league that it was a chance for Colin. Adam English showed, you know, in glimpses of what he's about with those 2 well-taken scores. So there are players putting their hand up early. And again, it's a big difference from last year when, you know, no one seems to be able to get going in February and March time, whereas it's a huge bonus for John anyway that there are lads that are putting their hand up very early this year.
It is, and you know, we anticipated that Colin Coughlin would come into the frame for the half-back line last week, and you know, it was an opportunity for him, and I think, you know, and all the consensus is, and Jackie Carroll referenced it in the Sunday game on Sunday evening, I think he grabbed his chance with both hands. I thought Colin Coughlin was very, very good. Adam English definitely showed signs of what he's about, and you had a few players coming off the bench, like, and you'd like a Kieran Barry getting another run, Shane O'Brien making a league debut, and that is something I think that we have flagged in this right for the last couple of months, actually, Jack, that Shane O'Brien would not only be in the running to be in the panel, but to be on the match day squad and possibly pushing for the first 15. And
Donegal Dálaigh.
Yeah, sorry.
Donegal Dálaigh came on, made his league debut, got a point as well.
Donegal Dálaigh came on, and you know, he got a good score. Is going to be a lively corner forward. Would he possibly get a start against Clare? Possibly. Might be an opportunity for him. Or would Shane O'Brien get a start against Clare? It'll be interesting. But the big question is, Declan Hannon is likely to miss out, or could possibly miss out. It will be very interesting to see how John Kiley will rejig his forces at the back. Like, there is no Diarmaid Byrnes now in the half-back line. Could it be somebody like Barry Nash that will be at centre half-back? Or will Dan Morrissey move to centre half-back? Or, you know, could Kyle Hayes come back and play at centre half-back? Like, there are a lot of imponderables out there, but there are equally a number of options out there.
Yeah, I wanted to get onto that point about centre back because, as you mentioned, the game seemed to change on Declan's injury. Now, Cork had come back into the game at that stage, that's right, but Limerick just seemed to kind of lose their way a small bit down the end and couldn't halt that Cork run. And you mentioned three players there that could play centre back. For me, Barry Nash is probably the most like Declan Hannon, and they're both. It's interesting. They're both forwards, turn defenders. Both have a beautiful strike of the ball. Dan Morrissey and Kyle Hayes are probably more abrasive in the tackle. Obviously, Kyle was exceptional for the 21s back there. Dan has slotted in there. William O'Donoghue has played there for Na Piarsaigh and won a county title there. That there are options, but Declan Hannon's role is nearly, arguably, the most pivotal role in the field.
It's the most pivotal because, simply because two reasons, Jack. He's such a wonderful hurler, as he showed last. Absolutely, he makes hurling a beautiful game, and he makes it look so simple that it goes under the radar. All he does, and then he's a total natural leader. Like the record books, they show, and there's a reason for it. Has led his county to win 4 All-Irelands. That type of leadership. You just can't buy it, or you can't clone it, you can't mold it, you can't do anything with it. But it's the biggest pair of boots on the team to fill at this stage. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what John Kiley will come up with. Barry Nash sticks out to me possibly as well. He was the first I named, and it'll be interesting. It'll be very, very interesting. We'll wait with bated breath on Thursday evening to see what the composition of the team is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but it'll be vital at the same time. But the thing for John is that they have plenty of candidates for that position. Before we move on from the game, we haven't really spoke that much about Clare. We mentioned the league win over Westmeath, but they are a dangerous side, Matt, and they've a lot of nice players coming through, and we've seen a load of them in the colleges, and we will get to the Fitzgibbon in a while. But Mark Rogers seems to have no ill effects from that injury he suffered. Robin Mounsey is playing very well for Toos. Shane Meehan, and you obviously have the likes of Tony Kelly and John Conlon has to come back into the side. Diarmuid Ryan, we saw him for Mary I, Davy Fitz, Ryan Taylor, that they won't have any fear, traveling the short distance over to Gaelic ground.
None whatsoever, Jack. None whatsoever. Both counties relish meeting one another. The rivalry is intense, and the byproduct of it all is that they bring out the best in each other. So, no, Clare will come with all guns blazing, because Clare will see this as an opportunity. All right, they have beaten Westmeath in the first round. Get a win over Limerick. And they're 4 points from 2 games in 8 days, or 7 days. And Jack, they're immediately in the mix for the knockout stages. There are semi-finals in the league this year, I understand.
Yeah, there is actually. We had that wrong last week. There is semi-finals.
As if we hadn't enough as if we hadn't enough of games, if we hadn't enough of clutter in the fixture list, and so much for those that continuously go far about burnout. But a second win for Clare, and it goes a long way, Jack, towards the semi-final spot.
Yeah, it will.
I know they have Cork and Galway down the line, but they will have momentum with a second win, and like they have Tony Kelly, John Conlon to add to the batch that they had last weekend, and they introduced a couple of new players as well, the like of Adam Hogan in defence, and was it a fella called Jack Kerwin around the middle of the field, and as I said, they had Shane Murray, David Conroy, and Aidan McCarthy back, who scored 16 points between them.
Yeah, I think Aidan McCarthy was a huge loss for them, and he'll certainly be there come championship time, and he'll be keen to make up. Another fella that was injured in the Clare setup, and he'll be keen to make up for that time missed. But we'll move on from that game, and we've another huge hurling game this weekend, and we have a special guest from Bruff coming into us. He's in the background there. I can see him working away. So we'll let in Roger Mulqueen of Bruff ahead of their All-Ireland semi-final this weekend against St. Martin's at Kilkenny. Roger, can you hear us?
I can, yeah. Mass, Jack, Marty, how are you?
Good,
Morning, Rog, how are you?
I'm good. Kept busy.
We can see
Are
you're busy.
you up in the tractor, are you?
I am. I'm getting a break.
Well, we're delighted to have you on, Roger, ahead of
technology.
the game against St. Martin's this weekend. I suppose, what's the mood like in the camp as you prepare for a huge game, an All-Ireland semi-final? Like,
mood is good. Fierce good buzz about it. We're trying to say to the boys, same as the Munster final, same as the semi-final, just enjoy it. That's the way we're looking forward to it, because we're in huge bonus territory at this stage. Do you understand me? Like, so we're all just looking forward to it at this stage.
yeah, I suppose having a big game like that, a Munster final under your belt, will, you know, it bodes well coming into an All-Ireland semi-final that you have that big game experience.
Yeah, we've the cup down the cabin, if you understand me. But it was great for us, because the last time Bruff were in a Munster final, we lost by a point. And as Matt said last week, there was 4 involved with the same team. So it was great for them to get that back. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was awful losing by a point, but unbelievable winning by a point, if you understand me. Do you know?
Yeah, it's the beauty of the Junior B that you'd have, you know, lads that have, you know, stuck around for ages, and to see them get their just reward. But you do have a couple of young lads on the team, and overall the hurling and Bruff is definitely going the right direction with the 17s and the 19s and the Premier Intermediate, and now yourselves.
The 19s was a huge win this year. The boys win the Premier against Mulqueen. And I was telling Matt there, we 14 on the panel that are in college. So trying to get them to train, you know, during midweek is virtually, you know, it's hard enough, like, you know what I mean? But it's a great complaint at the same time, trying to organise them in there on a Friday night or anything like that, you know?
Yeah, I suppose when you're winning and you're going well, it's easier to get lads to train, and there's probably a big buzz at training as well.
Oh, there's a great buzz. There's a great buzz around the town. Like we wanted to make a bit of a community spirit about it the whole time. And between young and old, like, we called to the school there the Tuesday after the Munster final, and we got a great reception. And we called to a few elderly people around the parish as well. But, like, they were all delighted all together, I must say, about it, you know.
Yeah, I suppose it's important in a rural parish that wouldn't have huge numbers, that, you know, everyone is rowing in the one direction. And you can see in a club like yourselves, when people are, you know, going in the one direction, that it can reap huge rewards as you stand an hour away from an All-Ireland final. Yeah,
look, everyone around the parish, but I have to say, there was huge best wishes from other clubs around South Limerick, even further afield, you know, for us there in the Munster final, and there was huge congratulations afterwards, and just people wishing us luck now this week there for the semi-final as well, like, you know, which is great, you know, at this stage.
Yeah, I'll throw over to Matt there for a second. He's eager there to get a question in.
Roger, you threw a couple of monkeys off the back during the year. Like, it was your third time going down to Kilkenny in the Munster Club Championship, and it was your first time winning a game when you beat 6 Mile Bridge. You got beaten by Bradford in 2013, Killavullen in 2017. Obviously a huge relief, but obviously another monkey that you got off your back was it was Bruff's third time in a Munster Clubs final, and as you said already, as you referenced, you lost to Cappoquin in 2014 by a point. You had previously lost the junior football final to Skellig Rangers. So, like, a huge relief for Bruff, and as you say, really into bonus territory now. You've got your first win in Kilkenny. You've got your first Munster title.
Yeah, as I keep saying, like, we're in bonus territory, but, like, it's a huge opportunity for us. Like, we know that ourselves. Like, these things don't come around too often. So, like, we're trying to make the most of it, but we're emphasising to lads at the same time to enjoy it. You know, the pressure's off, if you understand me. Now, you know, all guns blazing for Saturday at the same time, but to enjoy it at the same time. Don't get caught up in the occasion or anything like that.
Yeah. Roger, I saw both your games in it. And I spoke to you after the first game about it. There was a lot of shortcomings that manifested themselves in the win over 6 Mile Bridge. Like, there was the huge amount of wides. There was the inability to put 6 Mile Bridge away when you had him on the rack, particularly in the second half. But a lot of that was rectified for the final against Hurlers Sarsfields. A lot of work done in the 3 weeks between.
we did a lot of work in the 3 weeks, but you have to understand, against 6 Mile Bridge, it was after the frosty weather. It was very hard to get out in the field, and that we were explaining to you. And 6 Mile Bridge had a match against St. Brendan's at Kerry. Now, nothing beats match practice. You know that yourself. A match is worth 10 training sessions. So we did a bit of rustiness out after the 6 Mile Bridge. Like, we just barely got over the line, being honest, against 6 Mile Bridge. We got 2 quick fire goals. We were there, and that seemed to just seal the deal. But the boys did improve. Like, Hurlers were a quality team, and like, it was a very evenly contested match the whole way through. And we cut down the wides, as you said yourself. But there's loads of room for improvement from us, and we know that as well. We spoke about that last couple of weeks as well. Like, we'll have to improve a lot now again when we're facing the Kilkenny champions. We know that.
Now, you've seen, obviously, you've seen St. Martin's. They were previous winners of the competition. They won the Leinster and the All-Ireland Series in 2010, I think. They beat St. Mary's Rathkeil in the final. I was at it. It was, I think it went to replay, actually, if memory serves me correct.
That's right.
You've obviously seen them, and probably it's going to be perhaps it's going to be a step up. But you're going into the game as winners. They're going into the game having lost the Leinster final.
Yeah, but you'd obviously be wary of a wounded team, Matt. You know that yourself. And probably, I say myself, we're probably a small bit of underdogs, if you understand me, going into it, because they have great experience through their team. You just look at the names, Dowlings, you know, Ryan's there and Dioc. They have a quality team altogether, and they have a quality man over them as well. I met him the last day there, Dowling as well. You know, they're pure hurling people, very like Thurles Sarsfields. They just live for hurling. It's all hurling with them. Like.
Yeah, that's it, Jack.
You mentioned living there for hurling, Roger. You know, you would have got the draw for the junior championship only last week. There's no real break for you, but I suppose when you're winning and going well, it's you don't be wanting a break. You wanted to keep the train going.
Look, I'll be honest about it. Since that we've 4 dairy farmers in our panel as well, and now it's our busiest time of year, including myself. But someone said to me the other night, it couldn't have happened at a worse time for you. But like. We have to embrace it, if you understand me. Everything is a bonus, we're saying the whole time. You couldn't complain about it. Just roll with it. Do you understand me? I saw the draw last week, like, and that's down the line. Do you understand me? I said, look forward to next Saturday. Everything is for next Saturday, if you understand me. Enjoy it. That's what I'll be saying the whole time. You know, they have plenty of work done. Do you know what I mean? So, after that, it's up to yeah.
It must be a strange one in a way that obviously you go to start the year to win your county championship, but you know you wouldn't really be having All-Ireland aspirations. But now that you're there, you know you want it as badly as you wanted that county championship not so long ago.
Oh yeah, but the start of the year, like, we were still hurting from the year before. We lost to Blackrock by 4 points, and our main objective was the south. You know, we didn't go further looking than that, and then it was the county. And now we're in major bonus territory now after Munster, you know. But look, we'll be giving it everything, and training's gone well and everything like that. So hopefully Saturday now we'll put up another good performance, you know.
Yeah, and for you, you know, it is all about Saturday. But when you mentioned Saturday with the Limerick Hurlers playing as well, you know, we'd expect to see one of your own, Sean Finn, play. And I think be remiss not to ask about Sean. You know, like what he's done for Bruff. He's probably the best defender in the country. He's one of the best players. He must be nothing but proud of Sean and all he's done over the last 4 or 5 years.
We're pure proud of Sean altogether. Would you believe he was at Rahina last day, the Munster final? You met him as well. And
I did indeed.
Yeah, but he ran up to me after the match, like, and next thing he was just swamped. He was swamped. I just tell you that. I have an aunt from Milford in County Cork, but she's really a Limerick woman, if you understand me. But she couldn't do her only to get a phone. Sean Finn the same day, you know, and he's great like that with young lads, even in the club or anything like that. I see Cian Lynch last Saturday night, you know, giving time for the younger people of Cork, and he's the same way. There's no bother at all. Huge compliment to all them boys that they're so well, you know, they're big into the younger crowd coming through, and they have time for everyone like that, young and old. That must be said as well. So fair play to them, like, you know.
Yeah, they're a credit to themselves and to the parish. But I suppose for you, it's all about Saturday afternoon at 2:00 in Killeedy against St. Martin's. Roger, thank you very much for coming on and giving your time, and the best of luck this weekend. Hopefully we'll be talking to you in the future with an All-Ireland final to look forward to.
With the help of God. See you Saturday, boys.
Very best of luck, Roger, and see you on Saturday.
Thanks, man.
No, that was Roger Mulqueen of Bruff ahead of this Saturday's All-Ireland semi-final against St. Martin's of Kilkenny, the Junior B All-Ireland, that is. Matt, look, we spent a share there talking about the game to Roger, but I suppose your own spoke on the game. We've seen improvements from Bruff, and you know they have the monkey off the back, as you'd say, and they're within a stone's throw now of an All-Ireland final. You'd just be hoping beyond hope that if they deliver performance, they're definitely good enough to go all the way.
They certainly are, Jack. As I say, I've seen both games now, and as I said there to Roger, and I said it to him on the pitch immediately afterwards when we met up, that you know that there were a lot of shortcomings on the first day, and as I said to him, it's money in the bank if you can work on them. And first of all, the tally wides of 13-4 was extraordinary, and like for the entire second half in that game, after getting the 2 goals, now Dermot Dennehy was man of the match. He scored a goal, he set up a goal, but they really had 6 Mile Bridge on the rack, but just could not put them away. And then they went into the Munster final, Jack, in a good place, in that they were outsiders, because Tulla Sarsfields had a very, very big win over Cork champions Fremont in the semi-final, and looked very, very, very impressive. But like there was a massive improvement in Bruff on the second day, and really, and of course it looked in the early stages of the Munster final that the game was going according to script, because a fella called Cian Tracy, who's playing centre forward for Tullis, he had 3 points on the board inside the first 5 minutes. And like, you know, it's an extraordinary statistic, Jack, but for the next 55 minutes of the game, Bruff restricted Tulla Sarsfields to 1-3. And the goal which came from Redzer O'Grady was of a fortuitous nature, in that 3 Bruff defenders got mixed up and sort of came out, had control of the situation, left it to one another, and none of them eventually decided to take it on, and he just came in and you know, showed all his experience in giving the slightest flick, and it trickled over the line. But they won the Munster final by a point, but I thought they were worthy of a few more points. Now they could easily have won it by 3 or 4, and that will be something to work on again. But as Roger said, like they're in bonus territory now. You know, in terms of an All-Ireland final, semi-finals are all about winning, but they're certainly not into free pass territory or anything like that. But they're serious contenders, Jack. They're serious contenders. Like you look at it, Sarsfields from Galway, Tulla Sarsfields from Tipperary, St. Martin's from Kilkenny. Bruff are in exalted company in the last 4. And they deserve to be there. They deserve to be there.
I think Bruff from Limerick, though, is a well-known hurling stronghold. To be fair, you know, they've won a lot in Limerick as well. So they won't feel overawed. Yeah, they won't feel overawed by the company they're in. But yeah, look, the best of luck to Bruff this Saturday in Killeedy at 2:00 against St. Martin's. I suppose, sticking with the team of the Junior B series and moving over to the football, Castletown Ballyagran start their campaign. They're against Diarmuid O'Mahoonas from Cork in the quarterfinal this Sunday at 2:00. And this one is obviously the Knockaderry competition. And again, great to see that the Limerick clubs leading by example, Knockaderry and Killeedy. But Diarmuid O'Mahoonas, Matt, to be honest, I'd never even heard of them before doing some research. But against the Cork team in any sort of a Munster championship in football, they're going to give as good as they get, and they'll be one of the front runners along with, I suppose, Kilgarvan of Kerry, the other team you're watching out for. But for us, it'll be all about Castletown Ballyagran on Sunday, and they did show in the Junior B in Limerick just the quality team they have. To be fair,
they did. You know, they did. They had a checkered campaign in the South, Jack, a most unusual campaign. In that they beat Croom, they suffered a heavy defeat to Ballylanders, they beat Galway, and they gave a walkover to Galty Gales, and they gave a walkover because they had already qualified for the final, and they met Ballylanders in the final in Kildare, and they turned it right around in a low-scoring final to win by 1-4 to 4 points, and that gave them a ticket, obviously, to the county quarterfinals, where they got a walkover from St. Kieran's, and then they went on to defeat their hosts on Sunday, Knockaderry, in the semi-final. But Jack, timing is everything, and timing in sport. They really kept the good wine till last. And Knockon, who were appearing in the second final in 4 years, stood between them and the county title, and they just blew Knockon out of it, winning by 3-10 to 5 points, which was very, very, very impressive. In the Munster final, in the county final, and obviously there has been a considerable break for Ballyagran, but it pales in comparison to the break that Dermot O'Mahona's had, because Dermot O'Mahona's won the Cork Championship last July, so they've had a much bigger time span to cover before this competition. Now, this competition has been nearly the preserve of Kerry clubs, with few exceptions. A Cork club won the first one, and of course Mike Mann and Ballybrown famously won it in 2017. But the Kerry dominance was broken last year when Randall Ogue from Cork, also from West Cork, and by the way, Dermot O'Mahona's are from around the Inniskeen area of Cork, in mid Cork there. So Randall Ogue, but Randall Ogue were pushed very, very hard by Grana Ballingarry, if you recall, last year. They needed a replay before they won it. So look, for Ballyagran and for John Mack there now, who's the manager of the team out there. It's slightly a trip into the unknown, but I'm sure that he will have his team well primed for Sunday. Now, Kilgarvan were very, very impressive winners over Clare in the first round, and I'm just wondering, Jack, is that Kilgarvan's first team? Do you know?
I don't know. I know they have a strong hurling team, but I'm not sure if I don't hope it isn't, because they'd have a certain Donny O'Sullivan to come into the squad there. Yeah,
that's where I'm coming from, and we saw what he did against Monaghan last Saturday in Killarney, or at the weekend, and walked away with the man of the match. So were he to come into the picture, it would make Kilgarvan even more formidable. Now, it's something I meant to check in advance of the cast, but unfortunately I didn't. But that is interesting, Jack. Now
it is, but I suppose with the Kerry, they only have 8 senior clubs. I think it's 8 intermediate, 8 Premier Junior or something. So Kilgarvan would only be maybe the 24th team in Kerry, whereas in Limerick's 24th team would be bottom of intermediate, so there is that bit of disparity. But for Castletown Ballyagran and for us, all focuses on Dermot O'Mahona's this Sunday in Knockaderry, and as we said to Bruff, the very best of luck to Castletown Ballyagran. Hopefully they can move forward in the competition as well. Sticking with football, Matt, and we obviously had very special visitors to the Gaelic ground on Sunday, prestigious visitors in the form of Dublin, who, even though they haven't won the All-Ireland the last 2 years, they won 8 out of the previous 10. They won 6 in a row. They broke all records before them, and they had so many of those teams in tow at the weekend, namely Michael Fitzsimons, Conor Callaghan, Dean Rock, Niall Scully, Brian Fenton, who's a 2-time Footballer of the Year, Kieran Kilkenny, who won his 6th All-Star. And to be fair to Dublin, they were the better team throughout in the Gaelic rounds. I think that's fair to say. Finished 217 to 111, I think, in the Gaelic rounds. But barring the first 15 minutes where the writing was really on the wall. I think it was 1-9 to a point, and you were really fearing for Limerick. Ray Dempsey and his side battled so valiantly. They kicked a few scores, then the half. They got 1-3 without reply to start the second, and they showed that they do belong at that level. They were playing probably the second best team in the country, if not the best, when they've gone, which they did have at the weekend. But the result aside, Matt, definitely more positives than negatives to come out of the game.
Yeah, definitely, Jack. And I suppose, and we have said it and we've flagged it a couple of times, that the scheduling of the fixtures, and 'tis no fault of anybody, it is what it is, was unkind to Limerick, in that they were arguably pitted against the two best teams in the division. Although, in the general context of it, I have something to say a bit later. That mightn't be clearly the case, because, as I said to you at the very start when you were asking me the two likely teams to come out, I did say Dublin and I did say Derry, and I said watch Cork. But a lot of positives to take out of it, and especially the response, particularly in the third quarter, which was a very, very strong and a very, very encouraging performance from Limerick. And it leaves Limerick with a mountain to climb. Now, let's face it, Jack, we put no truth in it. Limerick are now in a survival battle. And what has happened is our worst fears have been borne out, in that we'd lose the two games. Now, the performance against Derry for 50 minutes was very, very good. Performance in the third quarter against Dublin, was very, very good. But unfortunately, games are for 70 minutes. And I'm sure that Ray Dempsey will have learned quite a bit about his squad and about his players over the last 2 games, as he heads into what is a make or break in terms of survival in Division 2. Make or break 5 games for Limerick, starting with Louth and RD on Sunday week.
Yeah, it is definitely make or break. But just staying with Dublin for a second, I mean, after scoring 4 points the first day to kick 1-11 against Dublin, now conceding more, but at the same time, we did say Limerick did look fairly blunt against Cork and against Derry. So that's one thing they've definitely rectified, or are looking to rectify over the last few weeks. You'd imagine the scores against Louth will probably come a bit easier. And if they don't come easier, they'll definitely find it easier to defend. Louth aren't the same team as Dublin, I think it's fair to say. And that game isn't on for another fortnight, so we won't look in depth to it. But the scoring stakes, the score 1-11, I'd say maybe 1-6 that came from play, definitely positive for Limerick.
And it was great to see Hugh Burke back, who is a key forward, and to see him, being Hugh Burke, and bit of a worry, of course, Jack, is Ian Sheehan, who didn't reappear for the second half, and at which stage he got 3 points. I don't know if I haven't heard whether it's an injury or what.
It's a brace afterwards. It's a groin injury, but he was touch and go before the game, and they just said that he had a half an hour in him. So I think it was fairly premeditated that he was going to come off. So I don't think he made it worse or any better. But I think he'd be there for Louth. I don't think there was. I think it was premeditated anyhow. But go on.
Yeah, because his importance to the team cannot be overstated. Not the like of Hugh Burke and Ian Corbett and these guys, that it's terribly important that we get our key players fit. And it was also hugely important, and we were worried when we were speaking last week about the knock that Brian Fanning picked up on Owen Big, and thankfully he was back and did very well, and did very well when he was redeployed to pull back at one stage during the game. So look, there are a lot of positives, Jack. Yeah, but there are huge challenges down the road, and I don't want to sound negative, because I think Limerick are up for the challenges, and it looked formidable from the start. We weren't expecting an awful lot, perhaps, from the 2 games, other than performances. But now that they're out of the way, Limerick's really challenging Division 2 starts from here.
Yeah, definitely. That's that the league starts now in less than a fortnight's time in RD. But there are some learnings as a collective and individuals. I thought James Naughton was brilliant. Probably his best game in a Limerick jersey. The likes of Killian Fahey, Cian Sheehan, Ian Corbett didn't look phased one bit by the opposition. I don't think many players did, but they looked they looked as comfortable, playing a McGrath Cup game as they did against the likes of Dublin, and obviously there was no fear of the boys like that. But just one thing sprung to my mind there, Matt, just watching Dublin and seeing the players in person that we'd become so accustomed to seeing on television. If there was a transfer market and you could bring in one of the Dubs to Limerick, who would it be?
Oh, sure, look.
You're spoiled for choice.
Probably my namesake.
Con. I was wondering who Matt was in the team. Con Callahan. Yeah, he's just electric when he gets the ball. And credit to the Dubs, because they really travelled to the Gaelic grounds. I'd say it was nearly 3-1, if not 4-1, in the Gaelic grounds, Dubs to Limerick people. But when he gets the ball, there's almost an air of inevitability about him, and he didn't get his goal, which was very surprising, but he kicked 4 or 5 points. He's a super player. For me, Brian Fenton, ever since he came on the scene, I think before a certain David Clifford came along, I thought Brian Fenton was the best player in the country, bar none. Just think he's a phenomenal athlete, and he set the tone for Limerick, and he got the goal. That Con had the shot, but a brilliant save by Donald Sullivan, but it was Brian Fenton that finished it off. But even kicking off left or right, just soloing through, he's just a Rolls Royce, and I say that too much about players. Brian Fenton is certainly a Rolls Royce footballer, and if I had to pick one, I'd bring him over. But before we go, there was
his second goal of the campaign. He got a goal against Kildare as well.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player, but his superiority in midfield was compounded by the fact that Limerick were without Dara Tracy, and I don't know. I presume Dara's back. I didn't hear that he wasn't, but he's needed back sooner rather than later. I know he had a long campaign with Kieran's and Hurling.
And Brian O'Donovan.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about midfield. Brian Donovan is back in training, which is great. But in midfield, you Dara Tracy and Killian Fahey last year. Killian's obviously gone back to centre back, so you've a new midfield there. It was Tommy Childs before that he's gone as well. So Limerick do need to bolster their midfield before we go to Louth. But we'll look ahead to Louth more next week, Matt. Staying this weekend, this Sunday afternoon at 2:00.
But before we go on there, just looking at the results on the first 2 rounds in the league, they have been peculiar. Now we're pointless after 2 games, but we're in good company with Louth and Kildare. Now Kildare are a complete enigma, and it's going to give you a sense of what this group, what this division is all about. Like, they pushed Dublin and Croke Park to a single point in the first round, and got hammered at home in Newbridge by Cork last weekend.
2 enigmas going at it, Cork and Clare.
You take Louth, and they went to Innis and they got beaten in the first round. This after getting a trouncing from Longford in the Auburn Cup final in Pearse Park, and they pushed Derry all the way, pushed Derry to the very limit, and then you had Meath at home. There's one thing that has come out of this thing, Jack, anyway, is Meath can score goals. They've played 2 games. They've got 3 against Cork, and they've got 4 against Clare. So it's going to be a very, very interesting group. But there are going to be no whipping boys in it, I think.
Yeah, I was when we were at the game, I asked one of the boys, he had what's the score, one them up, and I just asked him for the scores, and he said Cork were hammering Kildare, and he said that Louth were only down. It might have been results at that stage that Louth were only lost by a goal, and Meath kicked 4 more goals. So it is. I think it's on any given day. When which is good and bad news for Limerick, because if Limerick get to their best on any given day, it shows the teams are vulnerable, but vice versa. The likes of Cork just kick 2-14 against Kildare, you would have got an awful lot of money for that, or vice versa for Kildare to concede 2-14 in Newbridge.
Yeah, but the Cork problem on the opening round was in defence, when they allowed themselves to be open, split wide open by Meath. Like it wasn't the forwards lost the game; they scored 19 points against Meath and lost. And Cork's tally of 233 in 2 games, Jack, is very, very, very impressive. And I had a sense from the outset that that the main challenge to Dublin and Derry could very well come from Cork.
Yeah, I was along the same page to an extent, but I think the loss to Kildare will come back to haunt them down the stretch.
I mean, the loss to Meath, you mean?
Sorry, the loss to Meath. Sorry, I think that'll come back to haunt them down the stretch, because they still have to beat 2 of Kildare, Derry, and Dublin to get through. I can't see anyone beating Dublin. To be honest, I can't really see anyone beating Derry either. I still think those will be the teams to come out of it. But it is interesting. And for Limerick, there's probably 2 really going in for promotion, and then everyone else is kind of thinking we're a scalp away from getting into that mix, or vice versa, being dragged into relegation. So it'll be an interesting Division 2 campaign going forward. Switching to Division 4 and over to the ladies football, Limerick are playing Wicklow this Sunday afternoon at 2:00 in Baltinglass, GA. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, they're away to Wicklow anyway, and it's a clash of 2 free scoring teams. I think it's fair to say both had really comprehensive wins in their opening game. Limerick obviously beat Kilkenny 4-13 to 2 points, but Wicklow were similarly impressive against Derry. 4-10 to 1-1, and that was only a fortnight ago. Limerick played 3 weeks ago at this stage, so they've more recent legs in the tank, but it should be a far closer game. It'll be 2 of the teams kind of gunning for that top spot alongside Leitrim. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, fair to say. But you must remember, Jack, that this is an intermediate team against a junior team. We cannot get away from that. Now, Wicklow were relegated last year from Division 3, and you see, the league bears little resemblance to the gradings for the championship. Wicklow lost 1 game in the league last year, and somehow contrived to be relegated because they drew 2 of their 3 games. It was a truncated league last year in Division 3 because of the pandemic, the aftermath of the pandemic. And they fell through the trapdoor when they lost to Louth. But when it came to the championship, Wicklow beat Leitrim and Offaly to qualify for the All-Ireland quarter-final. Intermediate quarter-final we're talking about, Jack. And where they suffered a very heavy defeat now to eventual winners, Laois. But I'm saying all this is to contextualise the level of challenge that Limerick are facing next Sunday. Now, Limerick were impressive against newcomers Kilkenny in the first round. Now, Wicklow, as you rightly flagged, have since gone to Owenbeg and have had a big win over Derry. It looks to me as if this is a 3-way race for the 2 semi-final places between Limerick, Wicklow and Leitrim. And it will be decided in 8 days, because Limerick go to Wicklow, go to Baltinglass next Sunday, and the following Sunday they entertain Leitrim at home. So for Limerick, hopefully Limerick will get 2 wins out of those 2 games. But an absolute minimum is that they win one of those games. And in terms of the league and in terms of Limerick's group, Jack, they cannot come much harder than Wicklow, and especially Wicklow away. Now, in the recent game against Kilkenny, Graham Shine he introduced about 5-6 newcomers from the start, And to be quite honest with you, I lost track of the subs as they came on, but I think used about 12 subs. I think you can use an indefinite amount of subs in this competition, which is something that I would be against. But I don't make the rules, Jack.
No.
But and I suppose you're saying, go on, I know what you're thinking. Thanks be to God you don't make him.
No,
That's
no,
what you
yeah,
think. That's what you're thinking.
no, I understand. No, I certainly
Yeah,
understand
but
where you're coming from on it.
yeah, but seriously, he he ran the rule over a number of players. Now there were a number of players missing that day. Kathy Mia had been sick all week and did not start, but when she came on against Kilkenny, she she made a very big statement that all was very well. I think she got 2 goals and 2 points, but he was also without Alva Quaid, very, very experienced player. Also without Cameron O'Leary and also without Roisin Breedy, who is an exciting new player from Celtic Gales. So you would expect that all three of it, I think he's pretty confident that all three will be back on board for the trip to Baltinglass on Sunday, and they will be a huge boost to the squad. But it's a huge game, and it's a game that Limerick can win, Jack, because I think they have Graham Shine has assembled an exciting squad, a lot of young players, a lot of exciting young players, and it was also great the last day to see Andrea O'Sullivan back, and she missed the last 12 months through being abroad, and she helped herself to a couple of goals as well, and hit the woodwork a couple of times. Andrea could have ended up with 5 goals the last day. She really, really hit the ground running. And that's a big boost because, prior to her departure, we know the contribution that she had made. So absolutely fantastic to see Andrea back. I think it's going to be a difficult game, but it's going to be a game that I think Limerick can win, Jack.
Yeah, I'd be definitely thinking the same way. And it's a free hit. It's a free hit in some extent. With the fact that there's a semi-final, so the top 2 teams will go through, and they're playing a team, that are in the intermediate ranks. But Limerick have been in Division 4 for a while now, so it is important that they do get out of there. We saw for the men's game how important it has been, for Billy Lee's side, that they got out of there, and Red Dempsey is continuing that now in Division 2, that, promotion sometimes follows promotion, so it is important. But it is a free hit to an extent when they're playing such a quality team. But that game is Sunday afternoon in Baltinglass. It'll be streamed live by the LGFA for anyone that can't make it. But the best of luck to Graham Shine and his side. Moving over to the colleges, and we'll start with the schools, actually, Matt. And we had Salesians Pallaskenry in Munster final action last Saturday in Kilmallock in the C final against Mitchelstown. It wasn't to be for Pallaskenry. They lost out, was 111 to 12 points. You were there, and I think from what I heard, it was fair to say Palace just never really got going, and that Mitchelstown probably were the deserved winners.
Yeah, I think there's very few that were in Kilmallock on Saturday that could argue that, that slightly the better team won, because Salesians never really found the type of rhythm. Now, I hadn't seen them in the quarterfinal and semi-final, but I had heard very, very impressive reports about them, but they didn't seem to find the rhythm or the level of cohesion on Saturday. Whether it was the occasion or what, I don't know. But they were very, very much in it. They were only a point down at half time, and they maintained that until the 40th minute when Luke Keating, who scored 1-8 out of Mitchelstown's 111, he's from Kildare. His brother had captained Cork under 20s, but he got a goal and 8 points. He got a very, very good goal. He finished off what was a very, very good move, and Joe Fitzgerald in the Salesians goal didn't have a chance. It was a bullet. And at that stage, they went on to establish a 6 points lead, and then we found a kick in Pallaskenry. They got 4 points in a row. David Fitzgerald, who was outstanding at centre back, as was Peter Kiley at fullback, landed 3 frees, 3 long-range frees. Conor McMahon got a very, very good point. And suddenly, with 4 minutes to go, Jack, there was just 2 points in it. But they couldn't close the gap any further. There were no further scores. Very, very interestingly, and it will give you an idea, a sense of it was a game overall. Its best summation, Jack, is that it was a game dominated by defences, completely on top. Now, Mitchelstown didn't score. Their last score came in the 48th minute. So they were held scoreless for the last 12 minutes, and I think the referee Tom Loughnane from Tipperary, I think he added on about 3 minutes at the end. So that was 15 minutes without a score, but neither did Salesian score, and they just couldn't. They just could not close the gap, and really you would have to say that Mitchelstown closed out the game comfortably.
Yeah, look, it's disappointing when you get to a Munster final if you don't, I suppose, give it your best. But you know, for the clubs that are pulling from it, from a Palace point of view, further growth there for obviously Kildare, Palace, Kinnery, but Ballyagran and Patrick's well. I'm not sure if there was any other clubs represented.
No, they were. Interestingly, Jack, the statistics about it, and I think I gave it here last week. Kildare Palace. Sorry, I'm saying Kildare Palace Kinnery all the time because they dominated the squad. The Salesians Palace Kinnery were drawn from 3 clubs: Kildare Palace Kinnery, Ballyagran, and Patrick's Well. In contrast, with Mitchelstown CBS, who were drawn from 8 clubs over 3 counties.
Yeah, you were saying it
Cork,
right, yeah.
Cork, Tipperary and Limerick. So, you know, there was a much, much wider spread. And interestingly, and I made the point last week that TJ Ryan's, our former hurler and former manager, his nephew was in goals. Owen Geary made an absolute stunning save at a vital stage of the game.
Yeah, you were saying that during the week. So there was a bit of a Limerick influence in the winning team. But commiserations to Salesians Palace Kinnery, but hopefully they can go on and represent their clubs with a plan.
No, TJ's nephew was Ballyagran.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying the Limerick connection with TJ. Obviously, he won't be talking out for Limerick, unfortunately, but strong tradition of goalkeepers, you know, from Limerick or hailing from Limerick as somewhere down the line. But they could probably say the same about our Limerick players, to be fair. Moving on from the schools into the colleges, and we have UL, I suppose, are the main runners for Limerick in the Sigerson and Fitzgibbon Cup. Starting with the Sigerson this evening on Wednesday at 6:15 in Carlow. UL take on DCU. It's a repeat of last year's semi-final where UL were 14 to 11 point winners. They had Mr. David Clifford down the stretch, kind of pulled them through. They won't have that tonight, but it's been an up and down campaign for UL so far. They obviously beat UCC and then lost to TUD, but they've recovered well at wins over Carlow before dethroning NUIG last week. But DCU are the favourites and have been hammering everyone they've played so far. So they'll be a huge threat. Just running through their team, they've a lot of strong players. They've Conor Corbett from Cork, who people would remember from that All Ireland minor. I think it was a minor win he scored. Was a 1-7.
That's right, from Clare Rovers.
Yeah, they've Jack Bryant, who won an All Ireland with Offaly under 20s. They have Larkin O'Dell, obviously of Dublin, and they're picking from Dublin, Roscommon, Galway, Donegal, Cavan, Longford, Meath, Cork, you name it, Sligo, and they have them. So they're a star-studded side, and UL will be up against it tonight. And then obviously then you have TUD and UCC in the other semi-final. 2 teams that UL have already beaten. So you'll be fancying the team that comes out of the first semi-final, but I think you have an eye on the college in the second.
Yeah, well, obviously I think UL made a statement when they beat University of Galway in the semi-final. in dramatic circumstances, because that was a repeat of last year's final. And as you said, they're up against Dorcas Airn this evening, which are a very, very strong side. But I fancy that UL might just get over the line in this one, Jack. And I have a sense all week. I don't know whether I'm being blinkered or what, but the Sigerson final could quite well be a repeat of the first round.
Yeah, like I would fancy UCC to come through from what I saw of them. I haven't seen DCU play, so I'm only going after results, but the results have been pretty comprehensive. But look, obviously I'd love to see UL come through, but I think DCU are a very good team. But I would fancy UCC in the second one anyway. That there'll be
I saw UCC against St. Mary's in the quarterfinal, and as you know, I'm a UCC supporter, but I was bitterly, they got over the line, Jack, but I was bitterly disappointed the way they went about it, to be quite honest.
Now, you're still fancying them in the semi-final?
I fancy them. I fancy that they will rectify a lot of the things, and that the deficiencies that I saw. I thought they were very poor for long periods of the game. Now I saw them being eulogized for getting through, but that's as good as it gets for me, because in terms of performance against St. Mary's, I didn't think it was great now. And I know they got stunned. They were a goal up, deep in injury time, last kick of the game, and St. Mary's got a goal to put it to extra time. Looked to have won the game, St. Mary's, when Charlie Smith, the goalkeeper, kicked the 45 that shouldn't have been allowed in the first place, because the ball was not out, and everybody seems to think that, but they got a last chance. Cathal O'Mahony got an equaliser from a free late on, right at the date, and then you had the heroics of Dylan Foley, who I think got a game or two for Cork in the Munster League this year, and he saved 3 penalties out of 5, and they got through, and that's their second time getting through on penalties, Jack, and it doesn't matter, my opinion, as long as you get through. Looking at the game in its totality, it shouldn't have come down to extra time, nor it shouldn't have come down to penalties.
Well, they got through our line anyhow, but that's the Sigerson semi-finals. They're on Wednesday, the 8th of February. They're both being streamed live by the Electric Ireland, so you can check those out. UL versus DCU at 6:15, and UCC versus TUD at 8 o'clock. I think getting back to UL, I think UL are quite capable of getting over DCU now. It's not going to be easy, but Declan Bruder and the Lavins, and they have done a great job with UL in moulding him into a very, 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 very formidable outfit. And of course, they're a brilliant team.
The carrot is for him, and I know that you're old school. The carrot is for him to get back to the final for a second time, and this time go the full hog.
Yeah, obviously on Limerick side, obviously Declan and the Levens, are in charge of the team, and you've John Hayes from St. Kieran's who started the last couple of games, and you've Ron McGilligan from Munger is the backup keeper. So it'd be great to see some Limerick representation in the final. But they've, this is a team that's, a lot of them were there in the final last year, so they do know how to get the job done. And talking about getting the job done, we have Fitzgibbon Cup quarterfinals between tonight and tomorrow.
Jack, before we go away from the Sigerson, I was very disappointed on Sunday evening, Jack, watching the Sunday game, when Colm O'Rourke, who won a Sigerson Cup medal with UCD, launched a tirade about the scheduling of the Sigerson Cup and the playing of the Sigerson Cup during the month of January and February. I'm at my wits' end in sense, Jack, trying to figure out when would there be a better time. If you take the college terms and everything into account, I think there is no better time to play excuse me, the Sigerson and Fitzgibbon Cups than in January and February. I thought it was a bit uncalled for now and a bit over the top. All right, he has 6 players, he said, that are involved in the concluding stages of the Sigerson. But he might be relieved of that problem this evening.
Yeah. Yeah, look, you only have a certain amount of time in college. If you do your normal undergrad to 4 years, and you're obviously can't play when you're in first year, that's down to 3 years. I know some courses are only 3 years anyway, so you might only have 2. So I think if you can afford to let him play Fitzgibbon and Sigerson, I would be of the opinion to play the Fitzgibbon and Sigerson when they can. And obviously there is no other time to play him, only the start of the year, because as you get closer to the exams, you're getting closer to actual championship games. So I think Colin O'Rourke has ruffled a few feathers since he went in there back with Meath. But onto the Fitzgibbon Cup.
I have the utmost respect for Colin O'Rourke, you know, and what he has achieved, and you know what he's trying to do with Meath. A great player, I thought, a great pundit, you know, and possibly a great manager. Now going in the right direction in that regard. But I would take issue with him on that one.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on into the hurling side of it, we have the Fitzgibbon Cup quarterfinals starting this evening. We have DCU versus ACTU Waterford. We'll have Barry Hennessy will be in goals for the Waterford crowd. And then tomorrow you have the University of Galway versus Carlow IT, the UCC versus ATU Galway, formerly GMIT, and obviously the champions UL play UCD at home in the Maguire's Field at 7:45. I still think Limerick or UL are the team to beat. UCC will probably be too strong for ATU. University of Galway and Carlow is a very interesting game, as is DCU and Waterford. I did see DCU play. They're a good quality side. They didn't have the Mullins either that day, so they'll have them back. But I think UCC and UL are definitely on a collision course in the Fitzgibbon. Whether they will in the Sigerson remains to be seen, but they do seem to be the 2 standout teams left in the competition.
Yeah, on paper they would be, you know, but games aren't won on paper, Jack. They're won on the field. UL went about their business, you know, very efficiently. Played ATU and then TUS Midwest, got the business done. But got it done very comprehensively in the semi-final or in the first 2 rounds, and then left ATU Galway and TUS Midwest fight it out for second place. And yeah, look, when it comes to this particular series of the Fitzgibbon Cup, you will tick all the boxes, Jack. It's very, very hard to see where the biggest threat to them will come. Now they play UCD, which could be in terms of chronologically, it's the last quarter final because it's on at 7:45 tomorrow evening in UL. I think they would be really fancied for that one. Now UCD beat Maynooth, but they were comfortably beaten by UCC. Now UCC are playing at 7:00 in the Mardyke tomorrow evening, and I'm actually going to it. They're playing ATU Galway, but they were less than impressive. UCC were less than impressive in the first round in the Mardyke against the University, Maynooth University, but regrouped and went to Belfield last week and had a good win over UCD. So I think that they will probably get over ATU. So it looks as if UCC, the last of the Munster representatives at this stage, UCC and UL I think will make it through to the quarterfinals or semi-finals. After that, you said we had University of Galway against Carlow, I think, wasn't it? And University of Galway were runners-up last year. So they too will be very, very formidable. And like we've seen some of the Galway players that are playing in the Fitzgibbon Cup. I saw them playing last Saturday. I watched the Galway Wexford game, and fellas like Evan Nyland and Brian Concannon to me were very, very impressive. And they're involved with the Galway colleges. And I expect that University of Galway will win that one. The other one now will be very close between Docas Éireann and SETU Waterford. one that would be very, very hard to call. I would call 3 with a certain level of confidence, but I would be calling UL, UCC, and University of Galway, and then a toss up on the other one. But if you press me, possibly Dorcas.
Yeah, I saw DCU, as I said, without the Mullins, so I imagine there'd be another force up again with the Mullins in tow. But those games, 5 of the 6 games left in the Fitz and Sigerson are going to be streamed, so you'll be able to see most of them. I think the only game that isn't being streamed could be that UCC game, but UL's 2 games tonight and tomorrow are definitely to be streamed. The best of luck to Declan Bruder and Brian Ryan in both of those competitions as they look for a prestigious double. But we're gone a bit longer today, Matt, but I do want to ask you one more question, because obviously I asked you earlier about the Dubs and who you take over to the Limerick football team from the Dub side, but with Clare coming to town on Saturday, is it an obvious answer if you could dip into transfer market in Clare? Who would you bring across the border?
I suppose it's too obvious to answer it nearly, isn't it?
But if there was someone outside of TK, who would you be bringing over off the top of your head?
David Fitzgerald.
Yeah, he was brilliant last year, in fairness, an all-star. If it was up to me to pick, Mark Rogers was the first player to come to my mind, but I'm a big fan of Diarmuid Ryan as well. I've seen an awful lot of him play, obviously with Article Reach first and foremost, and playing with Mary Guy as well. But that just goes to show there is a lot of quality in Clare, but you'll be still fancying and hoping a Limerick win. That game is this Saturday evening in the Gaelic Grounds, and obviously we have the ladies football on Sunday afternoon at 2:00 in Wicklow. We have Bruff in Junior B All-Ireland semi-final action at 2:00 on Saturday in Killeedy. And then we have Castletown Ballyagran in Munster quarter-final action in Knockaderry on Sunday afternoon. So the best luck to all those Limerick teams, and obviously UL as well in the Fitz and Sigerson. We'll keep a keen eye on all those. A huge thank you to everyone for listening. If you're watching it, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure to rate us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And just thank you first and foremost for listening or watching or tuning in. A huge thank you to Roger Mulqueen for Bruff for joining us, and obviously a huge thank you to you, Matt, for all your insights and knowledge over the course of 77 minutes. But again, a big weekend to look forward to. We'll get in as much GA as we can, and we'll get back to you next week. So a huge thank you and good luck, and see you next week.
Especially again, we get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the fact of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no